Once upon a time, there was a young woman named Amara who had big dreams of escaping her small town for the excitement of the big city. She wanted to make a better life for herself, to find success and adventure. When she finally moved to the city, she felt alive, though she soon realized it wasn't easy to get by on just a smile and a dream. She found herself bouncing between jobs, struggling to pay rent, but determined to make it. Amara had a best friend named Zuri, who had always been her rock. Zuri was wise beyond her years and fiercely protective of Amara. Before Amara left for the city, Zuri had warned her, "Remember, not everyone who's kind to you has good intention, especially older rich men. Be careful, they are not what they seem." Amara would laugh off the warning, thinking Zuri was just being overcautious. She figured a little charm and a smile would get her through any trouble. One night, while attending a party, Amara met a wealthy older man named Kenneth. He was charming and well dressed, with a confident air that fascinated her. Kenneth showered her with compliments and gifts, and she quickly grew accustomed to the luxury and attention that came with his company. He seemed genuinely taken by her, and she felt flattered, enchanted by his promise of stability and glamour. When she told Zuri about him, though her friend was less than thrilled. "Amara, I don't trust him," Zuri said, her face serious. "Old rich men don't throw money around for no reason. He has an angel. He has to. Please stay away from him." But Amara only rolled her eyes. "Zuri, you are overthinking it. He's just a generous guy who likes to spoil me. It's not a big deal." Even though Zuri didn't agree, she couldn't talk Amara out of seeing Kenneth, so she kept close tab on her, checking in often and urging her to stay cautious. But the more Amara fell under Kenneth's spell, the less she listened to Zuri's concern. Eventually, Amara was spending nearly all her free time with him, dazzled by his world of expensive dinner, designer clothes and lavish dates. One evening, Kenneth invited Amara to an exclusive event at his private estate outside the city. "This is a rare opportunity," he said smoothly, "an important gathering where you will meet people who could open all kinds of doors for you." Amara's eyes lit up with excitement, imagining herself rubbing elbows with the powerful and the influential. When she told Zuri, however, her friend's unease grew stronger. "This doesn't sound right, Amara," Zuri warned. "Why is he taking you somewhere so isolated? It is too secretive. Please don't go." Amara only laughed. "Zuri, it's fine. I will test you as soon as I get there. Besides, think of all the connection I could make." Reluctantly, Zuri agreed, making Amara promise to call if she felt uncomfortable. With a final uneasy goodbye, she watched her friend leave, the knot in her stomach growing tighter. The night of the party arrived, and Kenneth picked Amara up in his sleek black car, driving her through dark, winding road to his sprawling estate nestled deep in the wood. Amara felt a faint chill as she looked at the massive, shadowy mansion, but she brushed it off, determined to make the most of the evening. The party was far from what she expected. The guests wore somber formal clothing, sparkling in quite almost reverent tone. As they glanced at Amara, Kenneth guided her through the crowd, introducing her briefly before leading her down a long corridor. She felt a prickly unease as they approached a heavy wooden door at the end of the hallway. Inside the room, Amara saw strange symbols painted on the wall and candles flickering in each corner, casting eerie shadows. Her heart began to pound. She tried to turn back, but Kenneth blocked her, his charming smile now replaced by a cold, calculating expression. "Amara, you are special, a rare gem," he said, softly, his voice strangely devoid of warmth. "Tonight, you will be giving us a gift. Your presence will bring us prosperity like nothing else." It dawned on her what he meant. The luxurious date, the flattery, the opportunity to join this gathering. Everything had been part of his plan. Kenneth and his guests belonged to an underground society that believed in wealth through ritual, one that requires human sacrifice. Amara's mind raced as she realized that Zuri had been right all along. Desperation surged through her as she remembered the small pocket knife Zuri had insisted she carry. Stealing herself, Amara gripped the knife tightly, slashing at Kenneth's arm when he reached out to grab her. He stumbled back, startled, as she took the chance to run, tearing down the hallway and out the door into the cold night air. The estate was surrounded by dense wood, and Amara ran, ignoring pain of branches scratching her skin. As she fled through the darkness, she could hear the faint sound of pursuit behind her, but fear pushed her forward. Finally, she reached the main road, stumbling out just in time to flag down a car. Shaking and breathless, Amara used the driver's phone to call Zuri, who answered on the first ring. Through soap, she explained everything that had happened, and Zuri, in her calm, determined way, promised to get to her as quickly as possible. When they were finally reunited, Zuri hugged Amara tightly, never saying, "I told you so," only comforting her friend and making sure she was safe. Amara's breath came in short gasps. As she looked over her shoulder, the headlights of the pursuing cars closing in on them. The cab driver's hands were shaking on the wheel as he tried to keep up the pace, but it was clear he was panicking. "They are gaining on us," Zuri hissed, gripping Amara's hand tightly. The driver swerved, but it was no use. Kenneth's guard car buzzed them in, forcing the cab to scratch to a stop. The driver turned wide-eyed and terrified. "I don't know what kind of trouble you two are in, but I am not sticking around for this," he said, bolting for the cab and disappearing into the night. The guests barely had time to react before the guard yanked, opened the back doors, pulling them out roughly. Amara tried to fight back, struggling against the grip of one of the men, but they were outnumbered and overpowered. Zuri kicked and thrashed, shouting at them to let go, but it only earned her a harsh shove and a warning glare. "Enough," one of the guards growled, tightening his hold on Amara's arm. "Kenneth is waiting for you both." Amara was so scared as they were headed into one of the sleek black cars. The guard ignored their plea and threats, driving them back along the winding road towards Kenneth's estate. Amara glanced at Zuri, whose face was set with defiance. Despite the situation, she gave Amara's hand a reassuring squeeze, but the fear in her eyes was unmistakable. As Amara and Zuri were forcefully led back to Kenneth's sprawling mansion by his guards, a glimmer of hope sparked from an unlikely source. The cab driver, who had watched everything unfold with wide eyes, though he had fled at first, the sight of Amara and Zuri being dragged off lingered in his mind. He couldn't just leave them. Gritting his teeth, he decided to follow the cars at a safe distance, just close enough to know where they were taking the two young women. When he arrived at the mansion's gate, the driver immediately knew he was out of his depth. The massive estate loomed darkly into Sister Aura unmistakable. He could feel something was very wrong, and so he did the only thing he could think of. He called the police. A few minutes later, two police cars arrived, their lights dimmed to keep the element of surprise. The cab driver waved them down and explained what he had seen, his voice urgent. The officers listened intently. Understanding the gravity of the situation, they agreed to move in carefully, not wanting to alert Kenneth and his guard just yet. Inside the mansion, Amara and Zuri were trapped in a candlelit hall where Kenneth had gathered his guests. Amara clutched the pocket knife Zuri had given her, but she could sense the futility of fighting with it. Kenneth's guards were too many, and there were nowhere for them to run. Kenneth stepped towards them, his gaze cold and resolute. "It's a shame, Amara. If you would simply accept your role, we wouldn't have to resort to this." His eyes glinted with something dark as he motioned to the guard to restrain her. But before they could lay a hand on either of the guests, the sudden sound of loud voice and footsteps echoed from down the corridor. Kenneth's expression shifted from smug satisfaction to alarm as uniformed police officers burst into the room, weapons drawn. "Hands up! Step away from the guests," one of the officers shouted, his voice commanding. The guards froze, exchanging shocked glances. Kenneth's composed mask finally slipped, his face twisting in anger and panic. He backed away as the officer quickly surrounded him and his guests, cutting off any path of escape, one by one. The guards were disarmed and restrained, unable to do anything but comply as the officer took control of the scene. Amara and Zuri looked at each other in disbelief, relief flooding through them as two officers approached, helping them to their feet. "You are safe now," one of the officers reassured them gently. "We are here to get you out of this." Amara's gaze shifted to the doorway, where the cab driver stood with a cautious, apologetic smile on his face. She let out a shaky breath, realizing that he had come back for them after all. She muttered a thank you, and he nodded, his expression both relieved and humbled. As Kenneth was led away in handcuffs, he cast one last furious glance at Amara, his once charming face contorted in rage. "This isn't over, Amara," he spat, but his voice held no power now. The police officers tightened their hold on him, steering him out of the room. With the ordeal behind them, Amara and Zuri were escorted back outside, where they hugged each other tightly, grateful to be free and safe. As they climbed into a police car, Amara looked at Zuri, her eyes filled with gratitude and relief. "Thank you for never giving up on me," she whispered. Zuri smiled, squeezing her friend's hand always. As they drove away from the mansion, leaving Kenneth's dark world behind, Amara knew she had been given a second chance, one she wouldn't take for granted. She had escaped not only with her life, but with a renewed understanding of the true value of trust, friendship, and the wisdom of those who care about her. And as for Zuri, she had proven once again that her loyalty and courage were worth more than all the wealth and glamour Kenneth had ever promised.